Electoral Commission, official information by the Electoral Commission, and read by Justice Simon Byabakama, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, here just a few seconds or minutes ago. He has read to us 1,033 polling stations that have come in with a total number of votes of 23,049. Of those, candidate Frank Bulira had 84 votes. Candidate Frank Kasimante has 66 votes. Candidate Kyagulanyi Robert Sentamu of the NUP has 7,753 votes. Elton Joseph Mabirizi has 45 votes. General Gregory Mugisha Muntu has 164 votes. Candidate Munyagwa Mubarak has 145 votes. Nandala Mafabi of the FDC has 560 votes. And candidate Yoweri Museveni of the National Resistance Movement has 14,232 votes. The total vote is 23,049 votes. That is what they have released so far, and it was just at 11 sharp. According to the Chair Electoral Commission, we are going to have another update tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and the expectation is that by that time a number of other polling stations will have sent their results and how it has been. Now I want to talk to someone as we close. Maybe he has been in the election observation for a very long time. His name is Mr. Crispy Kakeru. Good evening, sir.
Good evening to you. Just to be very accurate, I have observed 150 elections in over 50 countries globally.
Okay. I have wanted to ask this. What is that standard that is looked at and taken as the standard that qualifies an election to be free and fair? There may be a number, but what is that main one that an observer may share?
People should be able to participate freely, unimpeded in an electoral process. That's the only one. That's the gold standard. Yeah, I mean, anything besides that is really secondary. The primary standard is people, as long as you're a registered voter, you should be able to participate in the electoral process unimpeded.
You have observed elections in Africa.
Correct.
Out of 100, how do we score? On the African continent.
Well, I wouldn't want to give a score because different African countries have different contexts, and the contexts determine the type of elections we have. But I will tell you one thing, that in Uganda, we are talking about the need for electoral reforms, but our laws are one of the best in as far as electoral processes are concerned. Not just on the African continent, but in the world.
Why?
Because our laws provide for that unimpeded participation in the electoral process. You might have a question whether we translate what is in the books of law into implementation. That's a whole different question. But in as far as the legal framework for elections in Uganda is concerned, it's one of the best. And I'll tell you why. Now, in many of the African countries, you cannot challenge results from an election. It's cast in stone. Once the electoral authorities announce the results, that's it. In Uganda, you can challenge an election result. In fact, I shouldn't even be going far. In the neighborhood, in Tanzania, once a candidate is announced winner for a presidential position, that seals it. No challenging it in court, no challenging it anywhere. That's the legal position. It's in the Constitution. But here, people can.
And we have seen it happen.
We've seen it happen.
But besides seeing it happen and the legal framework giving us that leverage, do we really practice what our law gives us as a country?
Yes, we do, with challenges. implementation of the law has never been seamless anywhere in the world. Even in the best democracies that we love to cite, the UK, the US, you've seen how the US elections have been conducted. You've seen how UK elections are run. You've seen elections in the largest democracy in the world, India, how they're run. So, translating the law into actual practice has never been seamless. And I think we would be lying to ourselves if we wanted to say that there is a society that implements the law to the very point that that law has to be implemented. No. What we aim for, I think the law sets the standard, and we need to adhere to that standard as much as we can. Now, what we see in Uganda is an attempt. We try. Challenges exist, and that is why we're still talking about the need for improvements in the electoral laws. But beyond improvements in the electoral laws, we also need to talk about enforcement. Enforcement, which is what we're going back to, translating what is in the books of law into action.
Not only elections, why do we set standards that we fail to see to reality? How can we be the best people to write laws that we cannot achieve in reality to even 80%? How does that happen?
The law is a standard. You always aspire to. You always try to. If you hit the standard, perfect. But the law is supposed to. It's like in flight language, what they call a Doppler. You know, planes follow the Doppler. You know, the Doppler is put somewhere, and the planes are supposed to follow that. So that is what the intent of the law is. You follow the law. Now, why you've asked, why do we have laws that we fail to score? I don't think it is the intention to fail to score to the best of the law. I think it is the realities of life that we have to constantly address. Now, we need to constantly address those challenges that impede us from meeting the standard of the law. That is why we are talking about electoral reforms constantly. And that is why, ahead of each and every elections, it is important that a country thinks about the recommendations that were made from previous elections and seeks to cure those problems. And you can cure those problems by law, by administration, by program. By law, legal reforms. By administration, through making amendments in electoral administration, institutional arrangements, so that you deliver to your objective. By program, by putting in place programs that will support your objective. Civic education, voter education, and a host of all other, peace programming, etc., etc.
I want to end with this one in form of an example. I was interviewing an opposition leader during the campaign time, and they were complaining, this is the candidate, but he's still the president at the same time. I asked him, you have MPs in parliament who know about this law and sit where the laws have to be amended. They go silent about it 5 years and only complain about it during election time. Yesterday I was asking the Electoral Commission chairperson, where he was saying, yes, we know it is the law that allows you to keep around the electoral area, polling station, but we think, and I told him, the law is the law. Why don't you seek an amendment of that law in order to fit? Why do people forget, or why do we forget to take these steps and then complain after?
Well,
as somebody who stands in the middle in the capacity of an observer.
Now, let's begin with your first analogy. How many opposition members of parliament are running for elective offices right now? Many. All of them. So they're incumbents. they are running again. Yeah?
Yes.
So when we are having these conversations, we should be holistic. We shouldn't cherry pick that we focus on this position or that position. So if you're talking about the risks of incumbents running for elective offices while remaining in their offices, let's look at that across the board.
We shouldn't be
Let's not be selective. So for me, I think that is the beginning point
That's where they first go wrong.
of the conversation. Secondly, why do the members of parliament who sit in parliament complain about these issues, yet they can change the laws in the spaces where we have sent them?
And they wait during election.
Now, I can answer you this way, that even me, I wouldn't know why that happens. But I don't want to say that human beings are selfish beings. But that is what I see. Because you are actually in the space where you can make these amendments. Why not undertake them and come out to say, I mean, that you...
This is the right way to go.
Exactly.
Let us go this way.
But also, you know, when you are in parliament, you are not just a representative of your constituency. You're a representative of the entire country. You act in good faith for the entire country. So where there is a law that needs to be passed, you should be at the forefront of advocating for that law, whether in a private member's capacity or through government. So many of these MPs have the space, they have the capability, they have the ability, but they don't use it. Why? I don't know. Are they disingenuous? I am tempted to think so at times.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
His name is Crispy Kaheru. He is an elections observer generally. Yes, I have been reminded that we need to share information in the local language. Atulaba ku Star TV, ssentebe w'akakiiko k'ebyokulonda afulumizaayo ebimu ku byakavaayo mu kulonda okubaddewo olwaleero okwaba pulezidenti naddala jjukira okwaba memba ba parliament okulangirira kubeera ku districts wano ku National Talent Center we tuli watuukawo bululu oba ebivudde mu kulondebwa okwaba president. Kakati mu bifulumye bivudde mu bifo awalondebwa 1,303. Bakandidate bali 8. Asooka ye Frank Bulira afunye yakafuna obululu 84. Kasibante alina obululu 66. Kyagulanyi Robert Sentamu alina obululu 7,753. Mabirizi Joseph Elton alina obululu 45. Kwebyo byakafulumizibwa. General Gregory Mugisha Muntu owa ANT alina obululu 164. Honorable Mubaraka Munyagwa owa Mubaraka Munyagwa alina obululu 145. Kwebyo byakafulumizibwa. Nandala Mafabyo wa FDC alina obululu 506. Kwebyo byakafulumizibwa. Ate Yoweri Museveni wa NRM alina obululu 14,232. Kwebyo ebyakafulumizibwa. Olwaleero bifulumiziddwa ku ssaawa 5 ez'ekiro nga Justice Simon Byabakama asuubiza nti agenda kuddamu okufulumya ebirala nga bwe bikyajja enkya ku makya essaawa 3 ez'okumakya. N'olwekyo beera bulindaala, of course tugenda kuba tubikuwa ku UBC ne Star TV. That is how the evening has been, with an update from the Electoral Commission bringing in part of the results of what has come out from the elections, the votes that were cast this evening. We thank you so much for watching. And on behalf of the whole team here, we wish you the best of the night. Let's catch you tomorrow as we continue with the coverage of the whole process till the declaration of the winners and who the president will be, who the MPs will have won. Keep it UBC TV, Star TV. My name is Michael Jordan Lukomwa on behalf of the whole team here at the National Talent Center and as well at the Broadcast House, Nile Avenue in Kampala.
My name is Colonel Banison.
We are into the political scene.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. We still continue with what has happened, and for now we actually, a few minutes ago, we got the first set of preliminary results from the EC chairperson, Justice Simon Byabakama, from the National Tally Center in Lubowa by the EC. And of course, he gave us details that included the 133 polling stations with over 23,049 votes. And we had Bolira Frank from the RPP party with 84 votes, Kasibante Robert, NPP, with 66 votes, which runs off to 0.29%. Kyagulanyi Sentamo from the National Unity Platform with 7,753 votes. That's at 33.64%. Mabilizi Joseph of the CP party, 45 votes at 0.20%. And Mujisha Muntu Ant Party, 164 votes, which is a 0.71%. Munyagwa Mubarak from the CMP party, 145 votes with a 0.63%. And Nandala Mafabi FDC, 560 votes at 2.43%. And General Museveni, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni from the NRM party with 14,232 votes at 61.7%. The Justice told us that valid votes were 2,349 votes. The invalid votes were rounded off to 796 votes.